Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversation. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
5 years ago, the Power of We Symposium was created to provide a platform for kids from all sectors where they could have a safe and comfortable environment in which to share both their joys and concerns. The Power of We Symposium is proud to have served over 250 kids throughout Romania when we took our mission global back in May of 2023. Now, 2 teams of amazing volunteers from both the U.S. and Romania embarked on an 8-day Legacy of Hope tour, bringing encouragement and hope to not only the kids of Romania, but also the adults who support them, and also to over 100 kids here in the U.S. who contributed handwritten letters of hope to our Romania mission of 2023. Now, this year, we are proud to provide this opportunity yet again in October, and we are super excited to up our game. New venue, 750 kids this time, and we want to see you there. We're looking forward to meeting you in person at this year's event, which promises, as always, incredible speakers, amazing content, and of course, some of the greatest kids on the planet. So, mark your calendars for October 24th, and we'll see you here in Chicagoland for the Power of We Symposium 2024. This year's theme is Always Together, Never Alone. Tickets are available now on Eventbrite or at powerofwesymposium.com.
Need I spell it out before you get it, baby? Show me your soul, and honey, I'll show you mine. don't see. What's yours for the taking tonight?
Good morning. Good morning. Hey, everybody. Look at you guys. Beautiful people. You look great. Welcome to today's installment of Bathrobe Moments. I'm your host, Dr. Lauren. And it's Monday. It's Monday. It's springtime here in Chicagoland. We had an absolutely beautiful weekend. They're calling for rain tomorrow, but that's okay. You know, we need that stuff. April showers, you know the rest. Bring, you got it. Mayflowers. Welcome to today's installment. How was your weekend? Put it in the comments. I want to know on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being just over the top. Oh, I went to the Titanic immersive experience, which had the Downton Abbey immersive experience right next door. I kind of had to go in there and take some shots. Love Downton Abbey. And it was interesting. It was, I'll be honest with you, it kind of felt like when I went to the 9/11 Museum in New York City. Seriously, because it's that kind of experience that just, oof, you know what I mean? It's just like, wow. Very well done, though. If you get a chance to catch that, do. They were sold out, and but we've had our tickets for quite a while, and they've extended it here in Chicago. So very, very interesting. The only thing that I found kind of, nobody was really, when you hear people talking at all the little exhibits, most of them were referring everything to the movie, not the real disaster, but the movie. And I was like, do you think Rose, you know, it's like, okay, that's a fictional character. But anyway, great time. And a lot of time outside yesterday getting the property cleaned up, if you will, for the spring. You know how that goes. And I'll finish that up today. And what else? I think that's pretty much it. So well, I'll tell you all about that later in the week. Had a little more fun over the weekend. But anyway, today I'm very excited to kick the week off with someone I met not long ago, but I just love what he's doing. Has a wonderful, wonderful podcast that we're going to put you guys up on. Hear me out. Like, hear me out. Get it? And his name is Dana Saperstein. He's out in beautiful, sunny Santa Barbara, California. And he's a clinical psychologist, has been in private practice for decades, and now has this great podcast. And he's also a grief coach. So we have a lot to talk about with him. Now, he's never been here. First timer. So what do? We say welcome, welcome. We roll out the virtual red carpet. How do we do that? We do it by putting some hearts on the screen. But before I get him in here real quick, say hello to my sidekick, Miss Lucy McGillicuddy Ricardo. She's been here all 7 years. This is our 8th year together. I love me some Lucy. And there, right there is the bell of purpose. I don't hit it on accident. It's not a gimmick, not a show prop, more of an opportunity, if you will, because the truth, just like that bell, it has a ring to it. I know we're busy getting our content and doing 150 other things simultaneously in a lot of cases, but I don't want us to ever get so busy that we miss some golden truth that's moving across through the spirit of what we're doing here today, right? Easing suffering is what we get up and do every single day, and it's going to start in just a moment. It's already started. Put your ears on, perk your ears up, and get ready to be poured into. Here he comes. I hear him moving down the hallway. Dana Saperstein's in the house. Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. Right outside my back window is the Pacific Ocean. The sun is about to rise, and you know, what could be better than waking up to a sunrise over the ocean, right?
Me there, waking up, looking at it, saying, "Boy, Dana, what a view!"
Well, if you're ever here, I would love to have you.
I remember y'all heard him, right? There it is.
Right,
Sky, did that?
You have an open invitation.
Oh, you're sweet. Thank you so much. Look, we're so happy you're here. How was your weekend? Anything special happen?
You know, we had some rain, which is really special for Santa Barbara because, you know, we've had so many years of drought, but right now it's been a really lovely winter so far, and probably the last rain until maybe November.
Did he actually say winter?
Well,
Of all the, I've always wanted to say this, of all the unmitigated gall, right? How often do you get to say that, right. So, right.
All right.
Thank you for that.
You can put me in the wall of shame for making fun of snow. How about that?
Right. Later, I'll tell you guys what really happened. Okay. But I want to put them on Front Street. Listen, clinical psychologist. But before we get into everything you are and everything you've done and all the things you're still doing, I like to bop out for about 60 seconds and just allow the guests to create their own vibe with the audience.
Okay.
Instead of reading a bio, just have a little conversation, introduce yourself, and then I'll come back in and we'll officially get started. Sound okay?
Very good.
All right, all you take it away. I'll be back in 60.
Well, my name is Dana Saperstein. I am a clinical psychologist. I have a PhD in clinical psychology. I've been in practice in Santa Barbara since 1989. I specialize in post-traumatic stress, helping people recover from a really horrible childhood abuse. I also do a fair bit of relationship counseling. As Lauren said, I do some grief counseling also. It's a fairly general practice. I see people from the ages of about 14 all the way up, and you got to be able to make it up my stairs in order to keep coming to see me. Although I will say I've had a few people come and pick me up to bring me to their house when they can no longer do that, which is very sweet. On a personal level, I'm 68. I've been married for almost 44 years to the same lovely woman who is absolutely willing and able to put up with me, which I think is pretty sweet. I tell everybody I'm married up. I have 2 children, 37 and 39. I got a couple of grandkids, and I also, along with my clinical practice, I do a podcast. It's called Fear Me Out, and I have about 120 episodes up, and they're all about different aspects of trauma and also about helping people find the right kind of help when they need it.
Wow, I can tell you've done this before. Man.
I like it. It's fun. It's super fun for me.
Yes. So when you were a young buck in college, preparing to go out and conquer the world and make your mark, did you envision the work you're actually doing today, or was it different then? Because the world is so different,
I'll say that my psychological journey on a professional level started when I was about almost 18. I was not the happiest kid in the world. From the time I was about 14 till I was about 18, I was high every day. My friends and I would start smoking pot first thing in the morning and stop at the end of the day. I don't think I went to high school once without being high. And my parents kind of noticed that I wasn't the happiest kid in the world. And I got really lucky that I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and therapy had just sort of come into being in a more general way, instead of, people either, being medicated or seeing a psychiatrist. So my parents said, hey, why don't you go meet this guy that we've been seeing? Maybe he'll be able to help you. And luckily enough, he actually did help me and really changed my way of looking at the world. I stopped getting high. I started to realize that all of the self-loathing and bad feelings I had about myself were very much misplaced. And then as soon as I graduated high school, I moved to San Diego because I'm a surfer and I wanted to surf as much as I could. And I continued therapy while I was there. My roommate and I decided to quit college and move to Hawaii because I wanted to surf even more. And luckily enough, that's where I met my wife on the beach. Okay. A really sweet story. And then I moved to Santa Barbara to finish college, and I was lucky enough to be put in touch with a psychologist that really changed my life in a very dramatic way. And he was the person actually that said to me, if you decide you want to become a psychologist, I can help you because you have what it takes. And wow. So he became my mentor, helped me get into the graduate school that I went to. He was on my dissertation committee, and haven't looked back from there.
Clearly. Wow. Okay. So I'm going to go back to one of those earlier intersections that you went through just now, kind of sprinted through, because I want to go back to the beginning.
Okay.
You said usually when people, you mentioned that you help people with trauma, PTSD, and a lot of post-traumatic stress and things like that. And I would have to think that you, in order to know something about that other than what they tell you or teach you through books and things, that you most likely experienced your own little, so that's what trauma tastes like, kind of experience. Is that the case when you were?
Absolutely the case, Lauren. I do have a question though. How graphic would you like me to be?
Look, you're looking at the kid that had 22 homes, and I've talked about this.
Okay.
They broke down because I'm like this, I don't want to give the world a version.
Okay.
I want to give it to them the way we lived it because, I always say this. Yes, it was horrible at the time. I wouldn't have wished it on my worst enemy. But really, now that I'm looking over my shoulder to it, how bad could it have truly been? Because it led me to this moment I'm sharing with you right now. So that's just my take on it. And I'm going to show you something here after we get going a little bit about what came out of my mouth in New York City about a month and a half ago about trauma. And they led the promo they used to lead the interview was about trauma. I found that very interesting. So we'll get to that. But go ahead.
Well, when I was 4 years old, I had to go into the hospital to have surgery. I was born with a double hernia. And back in those days, your parents were not allowed to stay with you in the hospital. So they would drop you off and then, whatever you needed to have happen, they would come pick you up. But parents were not really welcome to spend the night. And so the evening before my surgery, an orderly came in and he sexually abused me. And he told me that if I told anybody, he would kill me. And so the morning of the surgery, he was the guy that wheeled me in on the gurney to the operating room. And when they were putting me under anesthesia, I thought that they were killing me. So I went under anesthesia screaming, "I won't tell, I won't tell." And so I completely blocked out that sexual trauma until I was 34 years old.
And how old were you when the trauma took place?
4.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I had no idea that repressed memory was real. I didn't believe it. I thought, how could you forget something that dramatically horrible? I wish I could say that was the end of the trauma that I suffered, but it got worse from there in some ways. My father had to quit school as a 14-year-old, and he was and my mother were both brought up in extreme anti-Semitism and poverty. And so we were living in Canada, and my dad was on his way to go into jail because he committed a few frauds in the business that he had. So we fled Canada when I was about almost 5.
Oh my goodness.
And we started in Europe, went to Israel for a short time. And then my parents actually settled in Brazil, of all places, in 1959. It was a pretty wild place back in those days. I will say that the person that my parents actually hired to come and take care of us was such an amazing woman. She was a refugee from Yugoslavia during World War II. And she kind of saved my life because I fell in love with her, and I was like a little duck following her around everywhere she went. And she was really responsible for helping me feel a sort of feeling of clean love for the first time in my life. Because my parents were so preoccupied and in so much pain that, my mom was super anxious. My dad was always worried about money. And so I pretty much was left emotionally to raise myself. So we had a really lovely connection. But unfortunately, after about 9 or 10 months in Brazil, there was a revolution that took place in the government. And I woke up one morning looking out the window, watching soldiers marching through the streets, killing people. And I was watching, people be put to death. And I just looking around thinking, what?
Now, how old were you then?
5.
Okay,
it was crazy.
You're on a roll.
Yeah. Well, there's even more.
At 4, people being killed at 5.
Yeah. And then luckily we moved to California. So I got really lucky because my parents settled in, one of the most lovely places in the world. And the summer before I was supposed to start school, my brother and I were walking to the playground, and a pickup truck didn't see me, crossed over the line and hit me. And so I flew up in the air, landed on my butt, but luckily I didn't really get hurt. And I don't know how you can get hit by a truck and not be hurt, but I didn't get hurt. I got up and I started running home because I thought the guy was going to kill me. And so my little brother is chasing this man who's trying to help me, saying, "You leave my brother alone." It's kind of a funny story if you think about it from that perspective, because he was trying to protect me.
Right.
And luckily enough, I didn't get, I got scraped up a little bit, but not hurt enough that you would think I got hit by a vehicle. Anyway, from there, I became a bully, actually.
A bully?
Yes, because I was so scared and felt so vulnerable all the time that the only thing I could do to prove my strength was by fighting. And I'm not sure why in my neighborhood, it was like a super Jewish middle-class neighborhood, and all we did was fight every morning. It's crazy. It was a very violent atmosphere. These little white Jewish kids, When I look back, Lauren, I think, I don't get it. Why were we all of us?
So what? You just like came out to go to school and got down to that spot, where you were out of the sight of all the nosy house mothers along the way, and then it was like, okay, so who wants to get punched in the face today? Who's up?
Right. Yeah, that's what it was like. And
what do you think? Can I just ask, now that you are who you are, and you look back, how do you ascertain what that was all about? What do you call it? What do you think that was?
Are you talking about the bully part?
Yeah, the whole thing about kids just wanting to fight. Is that just was that just, I know, before you were a bully, did you see the fighting like you did after you know what I'm saying? Was the lens the same? Or sometimes we find what we look for is what I'm getting.
Lauren, there was no thought involved. I think that I was so scared all the time and felt so vulnerable all the time because of the things that happened. And the things that didn't happen for me were equally as difficult, because if I ever got in trouble, my parents would send me to my room and I would climb out the window and they would find me playing and they wouldn't say anything. So I really never had any discipline at all. And you would think that would be good, and it was kind of fun at the time, but I don't think it really helped me develop discipline or any sort of a feeling like I was cared for. And I think when people become bullies, it's because they see vulnerability in their victims' eyes, and they want to get rid of it by sort of using violence to hurt the people that remind them of their own over vulnerability in that way.
So
because
what age did the bully come out?
I'm sorry?
At what age were you when the bully presented?
Probably about 6 or 7, maybe 8.
So, okay, 4, 5, 6, 7, boom, boom, boom. Okay, so he emerged like a splinter, just eased himself right on out of there. So let me ask you this too. I have this other question so I don't forget it. So you were, let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7. Did you tell anybody about any of the trauma? Did you was it just buried, or did you confide in anyone at any point in here at all?
Well, when I started school in California, I was about maybe 6 or 7. I wrote a story. The teacher said, "What happened last summer?" Right? Write a story about your summer vacation. I wrote a story about watching people being killed in Brazil. And the teacher didn't believe me. She wrote a note to my parents saying, "There's something wrong with your son. He's got an overactive imagination." And I kept trying to tell her that it was real, that I wasn't making anything up, but she didn't believe me because from her perspective, it was such an outrageous tale that, and so I got shamed into submission. I figured, well, if I'm going to be made to feel even worse for telling the truth, I should just keep my mouth shut and, carry on. And I was a bully all the way till I was about 14 in junior high. I got in a fight where my hand was probably swollen the size of a grapefruit. And I remember looking down at my hand and thinking, boy, if I'm this messed up from this fight, I can't even imagine what I must have done to the guy that I was fighting with. And so I've never been in a fight since that day.
Really?
Yeah, I thought I can't live this way. I don't want to hurt people. It made me feel really bad about myself. So that's when I started getting high. That's how I was able to overcome the bad feelings I had about myself by just smoking pot from morning to night.
Wow. Now, you had siblings, you said.
I have a little brother, and I had an older sister, but she sadly died from cancer.
While you were a kid or as an adult?
No, as an adult.
As an adult. Okay, sorry for that. So, okay. So you were self-medicating.
Yes.
And then what happens? You clearly you made it out of high school. At what point did you start thinking about the work that you do today? And what was it that like got your attention? Hey, hey kid, over here, and got you on the path that you live today?
You know, when I started therapy as an almost 18-year-old, it was the first time anybody ever was really curious about the truth and was willing to listen to me. And I felt it so overwhelming, what an incredible gift it was that, you know, that somebody actually cared enough to take me seriously. And so that kind of began the journey of I've always been a really curious person, despite, you know, what a wild kid I was. And I always loved to read. And so I've always had a really strong imagination. And so I just started to imagine what it might be like to be able to help people. Because I've always been super sensitive emotionally, and I've always felt other people's pain. And I figured, well, maybe I could do something to be of service because the world is suffering greatly. And I just found the mind to be really fascinating. I really found that, you know, being helped would be fun. It would be fun to do that for other people.
So, do you practice the religion? I know I'm kind of changing the subject, but there's a reason I'm asking.
No, I have a very deep connection in my mind with my version of God, but it's an a-religious connection because I was forced to participate in my religion as a kid.
Yeah.
And what that meant was having to go to Hebrew school after regular school and then go to school one morning on the weekend. And I thought to myself, I hate school to begin with. I don't want to go.
I got all these extras.
And, you know, this was shortly after World War II. So most of the people that were in charge of my religious education were rightly very troubled and really bitter and very traumatized. And so there was no joy. There was no celebration. It was miserable, basically. And I loved to play baseball at the time. So I thought, well, if there is such a thing as God, I'm not going to find him in the temple. I'll find him on a baseball field.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I discovered the ocean, I realized in my mind where God's home really was.
Yeah. Right.
Because I just fell so in love with being in the ocean all the time. And it's pretty much dictated my life.
The vastness. Sure.
Yeah.
Puts it into perspective, doesn't it?
Big time for me because I'm a water person. I tell people all the time that when I used to go in the water, I was like freeze dried and I would be constituted by salt water in the ocean. It was a really lovely.
Yeah, unlike those sea monkeys that they tricked me by time after time after time, and it was nothing but brine. Thank you very much, sea monkey people. Oh my God! You know, remember that? Remember those?
I would happily be a sea monkey if I could.
Do you remember those?
I do.
On the back of comic books.
Yeah, you used to buy them on the back of a comic book. You know, we are very.
They had crowns and stuff, and they were always like waving at you and stuff, and I'd be.
I think that we're dating ourselves here, my friend.
Well, but that's the good old. Those are good memories. Those are good memories.
Yeah.
So let's go into this. Okay. So the reason I asked that question was because, you know, organized religion, I come from it, a Seventh-day Adventist background. So many of us do that today are outside of those parameters, but really doing what we feel we were led to on a higher level as far as spirituality and that kind of thing. And I was curious because I hear you say luckily a lot. Yeah. Lucky and luckily. And I was like, does he really believe in luck? Or do you believe?
Look, I believe in divine intervention.
Ah, okay. I just couldn't let go because I'm curious. And then because who's to say? You know, we're not supposed to assume the 4 agreements. We don't assume. And so interesting. Okay. Because a lot of us got our starts from a form of organized religion that pushed us into the way we serve and show up today. So I like to bring that up to the top sometimes.
Well, you know, Lauren, one of the main tenets of my psychological philosophy is that when people come to see me, they often feel like there's something wrong with them because their symptoms can be quite debilitating, anxiety, depression, all the different psychological symptoms that we have.
Sure.
And what I try to help people understand is, number one, you're not your trauma. And number two, the symptoms that you have are not a sign that there's something wrong with you. They are a form of communication that on a deeper level, you're really suffering. So my job is to help you go to the deeper level to heal the wounds that cause the symptoms rather than just treating symptoms.
Sure.
So it helps people that I don't agree with them that there's something wrong with them, because most people feel an enormous amount of shame and self-loathing as a result of, being hurt as children. So the main thing that I try to help people do over the course of time is to learn to trust their intuition, which means shifting the focus from being external to being internal in terms of your connection to yourself. Because most of us are taught to be externally identified. We're always looking to the outside world to determine our value and to tell us the truth about who we are.
Of course.
And I think that it's much more important to help people recognize that if you want to have a connection to God, the easiest way to do that is by focusing on your intuition. Because in my mind, your intuition is the voice of God inside of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? If you don't like the word God, you can use higher power. You can use.
I use greater than. I refer to it as all that's greater than. That way, I include angels. Yeah, I include all of them.
Right. And so I just try to encourage people to recognize that, to not overcomplicate their spiritual relationship.
Absolutely.
Because, people make everything so complicated, and I don't think it's necessary.
It's not. It's actually counterproductive.
Right.
When you really get the momentum and the traction from following the clues and actually being consistent with the way you manifest and speak and show up, you start finding that it's easier if you just keep it simple. So I want to show you something and tell me what your take is on it, because I mean it. And I really can authentically say it. Now, I didn't know I could until about a month ago. I was saying, I'm referring to my interview with the awesome podcaster, Andrew Nemani, when I was in New York City. Went there specifically for this interview. And then this popped out of my mouth.
See, what I love about trauma, which that's the funny I snorted. It can get you to places nothing else can get you to. It can force you into learning how to believe in something that protects you in a way that bodyguards could never protect you. It sharpens you.
How do you not let it get in the way of living your life? Right?
Well,
so many of us, I'm sure all of us in this room are like, shit, we've got this trauma.
Yeah.
How do we move past that so it's not being a block?
One of the things that made it easier was to remember something that I had said or felt this way about before. Have I ever felt this way? I can't go to school Monday. I can't do this again. I can't be abused again. Whatever it is, I would say, yeah, I did. And how did you get through it? So it was like self-talk.
So there. So what goes through your mind when you hear somebody like me say, and mean it, that I actually love trauma? I love what it has helped me discover, the lens in which it has sharpened me,
Yes. Well, Lauren, I understand why people would be confused by the idea that you would love trauma. But when you're going through trauma, you learn how to go into an altered state of consciousness in order to cope. And if you're using that altered state just to survive, then all your energy is going into survival. Mm-hmm. But once you start to heal the trauma, then all of that energy is available for creativity and for coming up with novel solutions to problems and all kinds of other really important things that the average person doesn't have easy access to because the tragedy in their lives hasn't taken them to a place where they very readily are able to shift their consciousness to a higher level. So I do understand. It makes complete sense to me.
Yeah. And I love it because, I mean, who has not experienced trauma? I think
Not too many people.
not too many people. And if they think they have, they're probably just in denial, is what I say. But
Yeah.
the thing about it is, it's nearly inevitable, let's just say, just to keep it open to possibility, and say nearly. But it's like this. I find that when I'm not surprised about something showing up, that because it's a possibility, I know, and I don't wait until it happens. I try to put things around me to keep within reach, so that should something happen that you know gets between me and the me I need to be to do my best, I've placed some things around me to remember. Yes, remember, like I kind of referred to. When is this? So that I don't forget who I am and what I am capable of healing and finding my way through.
Absolutely.
You see, because if you start everyone like a one and done, you don't stockpile the blessings within something, in my opinion. And so, what about, let's talk about what tips do you have, Dr. Saperstein? Now I'm calling on him. What kind of tips do you give people that say, but I want to heal my trauma. I want to live beyond my scars. However, I have no clue as to where to start. Plus, I'm under a gag order because what if the trauma is due to someone who is still moving around inside my world, i.e. abuse by a family member or someone? You understand that gag order of silence that so many hide under. Talk about that if you could, Doctor.
Well, first of all, again, I'm going to repeat myself. I try to begin by teaching people that they're not their trauma, that it doesn't have to define who they are as a person. And I'm not trying to minimize the impact that it's had on them, but it doesn't have to define you as who you are. So I think that that's really important. The other thing I try to help people understand is that when you're a little kid, you think in very black and white terms because of the degree of development that your mind has gone through. And it's not until you go through puberty that you're able to kind of think in the third dimension, right? So something happens to me, well, then if I have a black and white way of looking at things, it must be my fault. Because the people that hurt me can't possibly be to blame, especially if they tell me that I asked for it or I deserved it or somehow they threatened me. And so I'm yet to meet a person who doesn't blame themselves for what it is that's happened to them. So I try to help people understand they've been blaming the wrong person all this time and that they're not doing themselves any favor by living in that shame and by looking at themselves as being the cause of the trauma that they suffer. So that can help a great deal. And so that's how usually we begin the journey of healing, is by recognizing that you've been blaming the wrong person all this time and that you've been hating yourself. And it's not necessarily that I want anybody to blame anybody. If you hurt somebody on purpose, you deserve to go to jail. If you do it by an accident, then you're required to make restitution. So the motivation of the person and their what it is that they did or didn't do, is subject to a lot of different variables. But mostly I try to help people, again, deal with the shame, because when you are abused, it's like being poisoned by shame and self-loathing. A lot of people don't realize how much shame that they carry around about the things that happened to them and the things that didn't happen for them.
Exactly right. Now, I love that you brought that up, because this is what I say to not just my coaching class, but my family member and friends who, when we're vulnerable and we're just putting it out there, is I always say this: trauma is a form of poison. It really is. However, once you're through it, you now have that poison in which to create an antidote. If they're going to make a rattlesnake venom or antidote, they need the venom from the snake, from the bite, from the fangs. They squeeze it or whatever they do. They get that in order to make the thing that heals. And so that's how I look at trauma. I really do. That I needed the poison in order to create an antidote, right? So
Yes.
how do people respond when you explain to them that it may not seem like it right now, say they just started treatment or they just start just picking the scab, so to speak? How do you get them to believe that this too shall pass? It will all make sense. It will all come together eventually. How do you convince them that therapy and working towards these things is a way to bring it all together?
Well, first of all, I don't really try to convince anybody of anything because
Ooh.
I don't think that that's a great approach to try to sell someone who's afraid.
Mm.
What I usually ask people to do is let's give it a chance and see what happens. When you first meet me, how would you possibly trust me? You don't know me, right? I'll be as candid as you would like me to be, but it takes a bit of time to develop that relationship. Also, I do a lot of hypnosis. I do a lot of hypnotherapy with people,
Oh.
and that is an incredibly accelerated type of healing experience because when you're being traumatized, you go into a trance in order to cope. And so you don't feel the feelings that are associated with what's happening to you because you're in survival mode. So I use that state of mind, which is part of hypnosis, to help people not just access the trauma, but to let themselves feel what it is that happened to them or didn't happen for them. And that is in some ways a bit of a miracle because once you start to let those feelings out and you let the people that hurt you be responsible, it's like losing about 50 pounds of really.
Absolutely right.
Right.
You're absolutely right. I
So
know
that's what does the convincing, if you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. I remember in 1988, it led to me starting a business that had never been done, put me in People magazine. And it was Anne, the hypnotherapist out in North Hollywood, excuse me, who put me under when I went there for the very first time. And she literally said, see yourself in People magazine. 6 weeks later, it happened.
Wow.
But she had put a trigger word in that first time. And when I came in the door, I think it was chocolate chip cookies. And when I came in the door the second time, she said, yes, you picked you're here on the best day. I said, why? She said, because I made chocolate chip cookies. I woke up with my head in her lap on the floor 3.5 hours later.
Wow.
My throat was burning. My eyes were swollen. And I had been grieving that entire time.
Right.
Because I wasn't allowed to grieve at my deceased mother's funeral all those years ago when I was a kid, right before entering foster care.
Right.
I was being pinched and said, don't cry. That's weakness. Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had no idea. But then after that happened, I started having dreams. First, they were ones that didn't make sense. I was getting chased by a caterpillar with 100 heads. But she told me, that's getting all the stuff out. I'm purging it. And then after that, clarity will come. Cognitive things, the light bulb moments. And sure enough, the very next week, I had the dream of which turned into the business Apology Accepted. Wow. Doing apologies for people who couldn't or wouldn't for themselves. And I made history just like that. So I know you're absolutely right. Tell us a little bit more about this, the NLP piece, the hypnotherapy. How open does a person need to be? Because when I got there, I didn't believe in it. She grabbed my arm and it wouldn't move. And she goes, oh, you're one of those. And I was like, what's that? She goes, oh, nothing. You're just a little resistant. Yeah. Okay. So talk about that.
Well, what I try to help people understand is that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, that you're really hypnotizing yourself. And I'm there to be with you, to help you, which is a very different way of looking at it, because most of us are conditioned to believe that you give up control when you're under.
Exactly what people think. Right? And that's not the case.
No, I tell people all the time, you're not going to have amnesia for anything. You can control the whole situation. If you don't like what's going on, you can open your eyes at any time. And that makes a difference because most people are under the illusion that what they've seen on TV or in the movies is the truth, which is not.
That's right.
So that's part of what I think is really important. The other thing that I would love to have the moment to talk about, if it's okay,
Of course.
is a lot of people come to see me with this idea that they're, in quotes, not happy. And I really worry about that notion because in my mind, there's no such thing as being happy. You can feel happy, but you can't be a feeling. And most people have been brainwashed into believing that that there's something wrong with them because they're not a happy person. And it can be such a huge relief to understand that there's no such thing. And really, what you're looking to do is create neutrality inside of yourself so that you can deal with the pain that's a part of life and create joy, which is what we call happiness. And it can be such a relief to people to understand that there's no such thing as being happy, because a lot of people feel really ashamed that they're not a happy person. And in actuality, there's no such thing. And it creates an enormous amount of anxiety. And it also causes people to drink too much and eat too much and buy stuff they don't need and all of that, because they're looking to create a feeling of being a happy person.
This
and
proves I'm happy.
Yeah, it can be a huge relief to know that there's no such thing. And really, you're going to feel happy when you create joy, and you're going to feel bad when bad things happen. And that's normal. And that's what one should expect out of life. And if you can achieve neutrality, then you have the resources available to create joy and to deal with life's pain.
I agree 1000%. Let's move over to the piece that is serving in many cases, no matter what the conversation. There's oftentimes, especially things that matter. There's oftentimes an elephant in the room, that kind of thing. And I talk about fear.
Yes.
Your podcast is called Fear Me Out.
Yes.
Talk about that title. What does that mean exactly?
Well, I think that people have a mistaken idea that you can somehow conquer fear or live a life without fear. And again, that's a huge mistake to think that the idea is to conquer something or to live without it, because you're only alive because you have the ability to feel frightened at times to keep you safe. Mm-hmm. So the idea is to understand that fear is a part of life. It's not a pleasant feeling, but it's also there to keep you alive. Now, I do understand a lot of times people have fears that are not life-enhancing, and that they can become crippled or frozen by their fear. Yes. But usually that's a symptom of something on a deeper level, which is usually trauma of some kind, or feelings of self-loathing, or feelings of not being good enough, or all the different things that get in people's way. So the more that you're connected to your intuition, and the more that you're connected to your inner self, your higher self, the easier it is to move forward in the face of fear. And if you understand that the fear is never going to go away, but really what you're looking to do is create courage in the face of it, and to stop focusing on the fear, it makes a really big difference for us.
Huge. You're spot on. You're spot on. I didn't think anybody knew this but me.
Can I say one last thing about fear?
Yeah.
The most common way that we deal with fear as human beings is to turn it into aggression. And what I mean by that is that if you don't face the fears in your life, you're going to turn it into either self-loathing or hate toward other people. And that's what happens with fear if it's not addressed.
That's absolutely right, too.
Right. Yeah. And most people, even people that have said to me, I'm here for anger management. And my response is, well, anger is not the problem. Anger is a way that you learn to deal with your fear. And we're not going to focus on teaching you how to manage your anger. We're going to focus on helping you become courageous in the face of fear, so that you don't have to become angry either at other people or yourself. Exactly. Or both.
One thing that I like to share with people is that I don't believe it's possible to be, nor it's not healthy to believe that you can be completely devoid of fear. I believe that's right. That's why the term is to be fearless.
Right.
You can become less and less filled with fear, but you don't ever, if it was meant for us to not have it at all, why would we have fight or flight?
Right.
It's embedded in, because we need to know, but that also lets me know if something is not, actually threatening my life or my vessel, mm-hmm. Then it is usually false.
Right.
False evidence. I know I'm not trying to be cliche with the false evidence appearing real and all, but it's true. And I've had to tell myself that many times. Now, on to what you said about the progression. Absolutely right. I have a 5-pronged thing I tell my clients all the time. If you just leave doubt out, you're going to be just fine, because it doesn't matter. Because doubt, in my opinion, leads to worry. Worry leads to fear. Fear leads to anger, and anger leads to destruction.
Right.
And if we just left those things, those other 4 don't really have any teeth or fangs until we let doubt in.
Right.
You know, if you left the door shut and then beat on the door, talking about, let me in. I ain't getting in here, doubt. We're having a party. Now go away. But I brought the chicken. Let me in. You know, oh, well, we are hungry. The minute you crack the door to doubt, those others, now they have fangs. They're the monsters you've always been afraid they were. And now you have given them power. So I agree with you. I agree with you. And I agree with you. So let's talk about this. Tell us rather, your take on any suggestions about self-talk. Things, some people have mantras, some people have affirmations. What do you suggest? What are some of the tips you have that allow people to use their own words to help create and perpetuate their own healing?
Well, it depends if you're open to having a spiritual life. And I'm not talking about a religious life necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some people embrace a formal religion and it works for them. But most people that I see are really skeptical because they've either been hurt in the name of their organized religion, or they find the hypocrisy too difficult to swallow.
Mm.
So my idea is, if you're open to it, then to open up a dialogue with God and keep it really simple. You know, you don't have to do backflips and somersaults because God is always there.
Right.
And if you start to open up a dialogue and learn to trust your intuition, it can be an incredibly uplifting, really powerful experience. I had a dream once when I was about probably my mid to late 30s that I went to sleep one night feeling really disconnected and scared about my relationship with God. And so I had this dream. I woke up, I had the dream I was living in the house that I lived in high school, but I was at the age that I was at the time. And there was a knock at the door. I opened the door and God is standing there.
Ooh.
And God is standing there in the form of a man, but God said to me right away, look, I'm not a person. God is not a male or a female. I just have to show up as a person in order for us to have a conversation. And I'm here to answer your questions about what my purpose is in your life. And I said, okay, you know, lay it on me. The first thing that God said is that, number one, I'm always there. The only time you won't feel me is if you turn away from me, because God never turns away from anybody.
Never.
Right? So again, I know that people are afraid to trust God, and that because of all the terrible things that happen in the world, that sometimes we lose faith. But God told me that, you know, God does not have power, but only influence. And the only influence that God can have is if you allow it.
That's right.
And so it's like, you know, anytime you want to feel my presence, which God said to me, is you just got to think about me and let me into your heart. I said, okay, that sounds wonderful. Anything else? And God said, yeah. The concept of forgiveness for human beings is really, really difficult. So part of my role in your life is to help you forgive the people that have hurt you, to help the people that you have hurt to forgive you, and especially to help you forgive yourself for the way you treated yourself.
Absolutely right.
Right. And so my presence in your life is also to help you come to a place of forgiveness so that it doesn't occupy your you know, your mind. And I said, anything else? And God said, yeah, because you've chosen to be of service. Just know that I'm always there, and that I will help you in any way that you need in order to help the people that find their way into your life.
There you go.
And so that is the way that you can counter the fear of the pain and the suffering that the people will come into your life carrying, because I'm there with you and I'm going to help you in every way possible to help these people heal. And I thought, wow, that is the sweetest gift ever, right?
Got that right.
And so I said, God, can you just hold on for a minute? I need to go get my wife because I want to introduce you to her. And so I'm running around the house calling my wife. We come to the door and God's not there. And the message I get is that, you know, it's not my role to help my wife in her connection.
We'll meet each other on our terms.
Right.
This door is for you and I.
Right. So I wake up from that dream and I'm feeling so elated and so well met and cared for. And all of a sudden I hear this music playing in my head, and I swear, Lauren, I have never heard or even known that this kind of music existed, because I've never heard it. I don't even know where it came from.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what is this music? And the message I got again was, this is what the angels sound like when they're singing in heaven.
There you go. Yes.
And that dream changed my life in a very dramatic way, because it helped me cement my faith and helped me understand that if I'm willing to surrender to God in a healthy way, that it'll be the most effective way of dealing with the fear that is a part of life, and to feel loved and cared for, because nobody gets a life without pain. We all have suffering.
That's true. That's true. What a great note to end on today. And beautiful, beautiful. Couldn't have said it better myself. And I agree 1000%. And listen, for all of you out there, along the bottom of the screen right now is DanaSaperstein.com, one of the many roads to continue the dialogue with today's guest. And then also for the podcast, FearMeOutPodcast.com. You can go there, hear past episodes, and find out what's headed up the pipe. All there at FearMeOutPodcast.com. And also, if Facebook is your jam, you can find him there as well. Fear Me Out at Facebook, and the same Fear Me Out at Instagram. Okay. Well, unfortunately, our time has concluded, but I want to thank you and offer you the chance to come back anytime.
You're so kind. You're such a lovely man, and I can't tell you how appreciative I am of being able to be on your show. This has been super fun.
Same here, and I'm going to be on yours, and I cannot wait. I'll let you guys know about that so you can join us over there as well.
Sounds good.
Yes. Dana, thank you so much. You're welcome back anytime. You guys check him out. And listen, God willing, I'll meet you tomorrow morning over there on the front porch.
Sounds good.
Oh, yeah. That's where we meet every morning, right, everybody? And I want you to know that I can't do this without you. And I really wouldn't want to. When we come together, we enact one of the greatest promises available, the one that guarantees us that where two or more of us comes together, we have a mindset, a heart set. We have sacred space that we share and pour into each other. Spiritual magic is what ensues, and I wouldn't want you to miss it. So join me tomorrow. Once you get out today, find just a little piece of your highest self. Bring it in, up close and personal. Scoot it next to what you already are. Take great to greater, bright to brighter, bold to bolder, nice to nicer. One E and one R, and then you will be revived, renewed, replenished, everything. I'll see you tomorrow. Get out there, be the best you can, be a blessing. I'll see you. And as I say every day, when we leave, I love you, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. Bye, everybody. Have a great day. Bye, Dana. Thank you so much. Great job.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.